Hey friends! Welcome to the Drug Prevention Power Hour, where we empower leaders in youth drug prevention. After creating a student-led movement hosting epic drug-free events across the nation, your host, Jake White, dedicated himself to making the prevention field more fun, impactful, and relevant for today's youth. So if you're in education, counseling, public health, prevention, or just a caring adult looking for strategies to protect your kids, we hope you subscribe and learn from every show. Coming to you from Jake White and his team at Vive 18, enjoy this episode of the Drug Prevention Power Hour.
Welcome to the Drug Prevention Power Hour. Now, it says this podcast is hosted by Jake White, but in case you missed it, I'm not Jake. I'm Reagan McDonald. Think of me as Jake's younger, cooler, funnier replacement for this episode. Now that we have that squared away, I'd like to introduce you to two women who aren't necessarily in the prevention field, but have impacted and changed countless lives, including mine, through their work in education. With no further ado, I'd like to welcome Laura Pullman and Dawn Murphy to the Drug Prevention Power Hour. Hello! How are you today?
Great to see you. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So, for anyone who hasn't picked up on it yet, these two were actually my teachers back in high school. I had Ms. Pullman for history and government, as well as my advisory class, so she got to know me for a long time. Yeah.
And don't forget coaching.
And she was my volleyball coach, so I got to spend a lot of time with her, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. And then I had Mrs. Murphy for some higher level English classes, taught me how to write a paper. And I didn't understand in the moment how big that would be, but I write a lot of papers now. So
good.
Thanks for that, I guess. It wasn't fun in the moment, but I appreciate it now, that's for sure.
We've actually been using one of your examples for our Tuesdays with Maury unit. Maybe I should have told you that up front, but it does say in my syllabus that's allowed.
Oh, that makes me so happy.
Yeah.
My goal in life is to be an example for one of your papers. And
oh, wow.
Yes, I did it. I literally have Tuesdays with Maury with me because I've reread it so many times.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Good
Everybody should. Are you listening, audience? Everybody should read Tuesdays with Maury.
Yes, it's so good. I love that book to pieces. So I guess I've already kind of said what you guys do, but tell me a little about yourselves, what you do for work, but also what you're interested in, any hobbies you might have, things maybe I don't know since I only had you as teachers.
Well, interests go with age. The only consistent that I have is the social studies, the politics and the history. I can't go anywhere without looking at history. Or with Dawn, we know we're going to go to like a museum, or she'll just jump out of a car to read a road sign for me.
It has happened. It was mostly not movies, but yes.
But there were cars going around us. We did block traffic. But, a lot of my interests involved being on a farm. I loved horses and moving cattle. Now, my age doesn't allow that. So I've drifted off into writing with Dawn.
Yeah, she's also been teaching for 45 years and is retiring this year, and that might be worth mentioning. And well earned retirement.
Yes, congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We did just publish a book in December of local history of our community. And people have been so supportive. We've almost broken even just in that amount of time. And we've had a lot of very supportive comments with that. So I think you can often find us climbing through dusty buildings or, trying to research and figure out, why is this in this location and not here? Who was involved and what were those people's stories? So that's actually, I would say that's one of our extracurriculars, so to speak.
It's just fun.
Yeah, and we really, really enjoy that a lot.
No, that's so cool. I don't know why I don't have a copy of the book yet. I
You
guess
should.
I will, and I'll get my parents to buy one too. Okay, so you mentioned that you've been teaching for 45 years now. How long have you been teaching, Miss Murphy?
31.
Okay. So how did you guys first decide you wanted to go into that?
It was never to be a calling in my life. It was like most students, I tried to limit how much in debt I was going to be. And the overall goal was to eventually get a CPA. So when I went to college, I decided, well, let's get something and then I can earn money and then go back to school. And my love was history and I knew it. So I went that direction. And then it was actually the first day of teaching. I went back to my apartment and I just said, what God is asking you to do. And dang, I did not want this. I did not, but it was a calling. And as you're going to find out, sometimes you got to answer those callings.
Yeah, I mean, somewhat similar. I did not go to college planning to teach. I went pre-law initially, and it was a double major of English and history with a minor in business with, wow, that left pretty quickly. I think I had always loved the idea of teaching, but I just felt like I needed to be able to support myself better than that. And eventually, I knew that even if I went law, I'd end up working with like juveniles because I just love teenagers and I'm fascinated by teenagers. I was fascinated when I was a teenager, like, why do we do the things that we do? And I just, yeah, I mean, it becomes a calling and a pull on your heart, I think. And you finally are just like, all right, I give up. Like, this is what I'm supposed to do with my life. So I think very, very similar stories.
All right. I mean, I appreciate that you say that you didn't want to go into it initially, that it was just kind of that calling, and you both mentioned you just kind of can't run away from it at that point.
No, you can't. You can't.
So, even if you didn't necessarily set out to become a teacher, as many of us can agree, teaching is a very underappreciated profession, I would say. And as someone who was in both of your classes and saw how it was far from easy at times, when things get tough, what drives you to continue? I've got a lot of memories of moments where it definitely wasn't easy for you guys.
No, but you got to remember we're dealing with teenagers, and part of being a teenager is making mistakes and to explore. And in so doing, you have to discuss ideas and share. And there are ideas that everybody has that I go, boy, I don't agree with those. They got to, in social studies especially, we've got to allow people to discuss and express themselves.
That's the beauty of the humanities is that it's not like, here's the right answer. And you have one correct answer and that's it, and that's really the place some people want to be. We want to be able to talk things through and have, see students use those critical thinking skills. And it is hard. Teaching is hard. And anybody who tells you differently is trying to sell you something. I mean, it is, but also like, I don't think I'm the kind of person who could just have a job. Like my job is part of my identity, right? I'm Mrs. Murphy and that's who I am. Like I have to have a job that expects a lot of me. And I think too, you're always thinking about like my driving force in everything I do, especially with juniors and seniors, is how can they be as empowered and prepared as possible for the next step. So even though you might have days where things are not smooth and it's really hard, like I'm always thinking of this is going to help prepare for the next step. And so you see that bigger picture and that's kind of what keeps you coming back, I think.
The bigger.
When you work with people, especially in the field of education, when students start understanding, a light bulb comes on. I mean, it's difficult to say or understand, but when you're a teacher, their eyes light up. And yours used to do that.
Yeah.
That's when I knew she's got it. She's got it. She just started to think differently.
I remember those moments. I remember the day that you decided you were just going to come after me during current events. I had upset you during volleyball practice the night before, and you were like, I'm going after you tomorrow in class.
At least she let you know.
And you went through everybody else, and then you turned to me at the end and you were like, you ready? I was so scared. I'm still scared. I think I would still be scared if that happened today.
We didn't want to inflict trauma.
Well, maybe.
Maybe she did.
I don't think I have any trauma from Mrs. Murphy. I have a lot of like little quotes that you would just spew out of nowhere and think it meant nothing, and I just held on. I used to write them down in my notes app. Like I'd leave class and write them down, and I was like, she just thinks this is so casual, but like I'm gonna hold on to that. So
good.
Anyways.
That does my heart good to hear that.
So I traumatized you and she gave you messages. That's good.
Yeah, you guys meshed together very well. Very well. There were times that you didn't traumatize me.
So that's good. We can build on that.
Okay.
But you definitely have the fear factor going for you for a little bit.
She is a legend.
She is a legend. I don't even know how to describe Ms. Pullman to people. But then someone else from Clay Center hears me and they're like, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Well, if you only knew, I was saying things I didn't even believe just to get you to
No, and it would annoy me so
hard to
much.
debate me.
I know, because you would say the craziest things that I knew you didn't actually believe just to make me upset.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'd
Because
leave
you're
and
going to
someone
run
would be
into
like,
that in life.
yeah, someone would be like, do you think she actually thinks that? No, she doesn't think that. She just wants me to argue with her.
Be engaged.
Yes.
Engaged. I was very engaged. Sorry, that just like awoke another level of bones I need to pick with people.
Okay.
Okay. So both of you have been teaching for quite a bit, and you've seen many students cycle throughout the years. Are there any observable traits you've recognized in your most successful students? As in, like, what sets them apart from everyone else? Do you feel like you can kind of tell?
It depends what success is. In our area, sometimes students just coming to school, that's a success.
Right.
There's a lot of hardships out there. But one of the items is being responsible, being respectful, and being organized are some main ones. And eventually we'll work with you on the judgment and communication pieces, and we can help with that.
Yeah, and I would say being curious. I think curiosity and empathy are kind of overlooked because curiosity to me is an antidote to like rigid thinking,
Yes.
and you can be
Okay, yeah.
18 or, 80 and have rigid thinking rather than, I'm going to pull from Ted Lasso here, which I love that show. But there's that famous scene where he just says, you can be judgmental or you could just be curious and wonder why something's going on. And that feeds into that whole critical thinking piece too. So I think curiosity and empathy and, I think resilience and
Resilience.
open-mindedness. It's trite to say you fall down 39 times and get up 40, but that's kind of true. Everything's not always going to work out. And then you have to decide, like, is that going to make me bitter forever? Or am I going to say, all right, I need to learn some stuff from that and I'm going to keep going. And sometimes you just need to be the person who shows up every day.
Yes.
And there's a lot to be said for the people who just show up and keep trying.
Okay. If you guys don't have a story for this, that's totally fine. But do you have any personal examples of like falling 39 times and getting up 40 or anything to go along with that?
Oh my, one that comes to mind right away, the home life wasn't very good. And this was years ago before everything was put on computers. And this young man, he shouldn't have passed my class. But I took him out of the classroom and I said life hadn't been fair to him. And then, but I thought he needed a break. So I passed him and I said, you do good to others. And he turned out to be an officer of the law. So there's other ones. The kids didn't have food. I mean, there's crazy things that we deal with and we just help them. Sometimes grades aren't everything, and we just help them along the way. And this particular young man, he also went into law enforcement. And once the teachers found out they didn't have food, my goodness, we were taking food. Teachers were bringing us things for him, buying him shoes. Oh my, it's just incredible the heart that people have sometimes.
Yeah, and I think we've both come out of not perfect families. So, and neither of us came out of wealth. Even slightly. And so we really have a heart, I think, for those students who are up against it, from a socioeconomic status or don't have that home support. And they are always pretty close to our hearts, I would say. And so I think even we, personally, we've overcome some things to be here and sit here and, give out the tidbits. Some of those tidbits have been hard earned in our own lives.
This resiliency, like you said, and sometimes you fail, you got to stand up, start again.
I think even little things like I was just talking to students the other day and we were talking about anxiety and kind of how to deal with that. And I said, when I was in high school, I just had a pretty dysfunctional home. And I think there were some pieces there, like I memorized license plates. I compulsively counted stairs in my own home and in my school. I couldn't walk the stairs without counting. And all of that, over time, you start to see that as I was just a very high functioning person with anxiety. And so I was able to tell students, here are some things that I did. And I could tell that, my guess would be they are also people who struggle with that. It was in my advisory. And it's just, that's that's just a sideways conversation that you have with people, that you don't plan. And I think I could see them both go, okay, like she turned out reasonably well. Maybe I will too, and maybe I'm not weird for feeling the way I feel, and I think anytime that we can share those kind of things, there's the curriculum and then there's everything else too. And I think those conversations sometimes are just as important.
I think that it speaks volumes about who you are as a teacher and the relationship you have with students, that you're able to have those sideways conversations, that they feel comfortable enough, like talking about those things, whereas years ago we wouldn't even mention anxiety or anything of the sort. Like there was just this stigma around it. And the fact that you're able to have that conversation and kind of see that like light bulb moment again of she turned out reasonably well.
Notice they're saying about you, not me.
Well,
No, just the fact that those conversations are being held, I would agree that in a way that's just as important. Looking back at high school, that's what I took away, is those conversations and the current events in history. I'm probably not going to recall a lot of the stuff that was on the test, but I do remember all of those current events topics. And I still look at the news because maybe I'm traumatized from needing to know the news every morning. Besides the point, I just think it speaks volumes about who you are as teachers, that students feel comfortable having those conversations and leaning on you and seeing that resilience piece.
thank you.
Moving forward, have you had any students that stay in touch / use you as a resource after graduation, or how has that worked out for you or for them, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this when we were brainstorming before we came online with you today, but and I know I have friends who teach in Kansas City and places, and they certainly keep contact with students too. But for us, we can't go anywhere in Clay County without running into former students.
Right.
I mean, we were brainstorming at our local yoga place today and drinking coffee and stuff. And that's owned by one of our former students, So I think, yes, students do still see us as resources. One of my proudest moments is I had a student who got pregnant when she was a junior. This has been several years ago now. And she and her sisters have just they were up against it, her sisters and brothers. And she got pregnant as a junior. And I just begged her, please do not drop out. Please, please, please don't. And she did. I mean, she just felt like that's what she needed to do. She was really sick, had horrible morning sickness, and just couldn't see beyond this moment, which is totally understandable. Yeah. And years later, she contacted me. It's so, we talk a lot about the negatives of social media, but there are positives as well.
Yes.
And she reached out to me in a message on Facebook and had said, hey, I'm going to go back and get my GED. Actually, she was going to go back and get her diploma. And I said, oh, I think that's so smart. And she said, would you help me with the English part? As I'm taking these classes, finishing up. And I said, absolutely. And so she would just send me and say, I don't know what this grammar is. You got to help me, And she graduated, years later. And she's a great mom. She's a great daughter and sister. She and her family have done amazing things to break cycles in their family. And you just think, man, I get to be just a tiny, tiny part of that and see that. And there's just nothing like it. That's our high, right? To see our students go out and conquer and give back to their communities and their families. And that's the high, man. We're living the dream. I mean, we were laughing about that earlier. And it's not everybody's dream, and it shouldn't be, but it is our dream, and we're living it. And that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool to be able to say that. I actually just got a text from a student who's like, hey, I'm going on a mission trip. Could I talk to you about that? And maybe talk to you about some support and stuff. And we'll end up talking about that.
Yeah.
I mean, literally a text just came in and I need to silence my phone. But, they keep coming back around. You never know.
Have you had any examples of that?
Well, Don had to remind me of one. It was over the winter holiday break. A former student contacted me, and he's writing a book about history of one of our smaller towns. And he wanted me to kind of go through it and everything. It was very well done, very well organized. We just sat for hours eating a hamburger and just talking history. And he was a student who, wasn't a scholar, but yet he found a love of history. And it was just wonderful to spend the night with him and hear his successes and what he was doing the next go around. Otherwise, just yesterday, I was in a town 90 miles from here, in a Walmart, no less. All of a sudden, I heard Miss Pullman. And I'm going, oh my gosh, he knows me up here. And it was a former student. And
Yeah.
he's going, what are you doing here? And I said, well, this is actually where I'm from. And he goes, really? And I said, remember, I always told you I was never going to tell you about myself. You had to figure it out. I said, you now know where I'm from. And he goes, wow. And I said, well, what are you doing here? And he goes, picking up my girlfriend. I said, well, I don't need to know any more from that. Our experiences are different. I don't do so much social media. I never found the time for it.
You're a lot harder to track down.
Yeah,
You're right.
on purpose.
I know. I wished you a happy birthday. I remembered.
Everybody found out about that. How did you find out?
I saw you at El Porto celebrating.
Was I celebrating? Oh, that's right. It wasn't this year, it was a year ago. Right. Okay.
And I wrote it down so that I could email you.
Oh, okay. I was blaming people for putting it on social media. It's my day. Leave me alone.
We helped set some smart people out into the world.
Yeah.
They know how to investigate.
And now my house is decorated all the time. I don't know why.
It's a form of love.
I did have your house pointed out to me by someone one time.
Oh, yeah. Everybody now knows where I live.
I mean, there's not many options in Clay, but
It's true.
Well,
Yeah.
you can at least pick up the weeds or something.
I've never done anything. I've seen you
Yeah.
on your walks, though. Have you gotten sprayed by any skunks this year?
You know what? No, I haven't even seen one. But the raccoons are pooping in my backyard. I don't know what's gonna happen to them.
Especially now that she's retiring, she'll
Yeah.
have time to really.
Maybe a squirt gun.
We may end
How
up
about
bailing
time for all those weeds? You don't need students to pull those.
Right.
Maybe you can take up gardening.
I don't have any room in the back for that
on purpose.
on purpose. I have flowers. I
Okay.
have shrubs all over the place.
Okay.
Yeah.
See? Decorated.
They have been decorated by numerous people, former students, and it's
Neighbors.
and neighbors. Yes, my neighbors. That's okay. It's fun. And I get revenge.
She does.
Yeah. Many of our listeners are in middle or high school and work diligently to help others, and they try to make positive changes in their community. And I would just like to know, and I'm sure some of them would as well, from your experience, what advice would you give to a current high school student? It could be directly related to leadership or success, but more so, it could just be general advice for life.
Yeah, I would say work a plan and be open to change. I think that one of the things I see talking to seniors during office hours visits and things like that is that they feel so much pressure to have the whole rest of their lives planned out. And it's hard to tell someone who's 17 or 18, yeah, but a lot of things are going to change, you know? So I would just say work a plan and be open to changes, you know, because I think change really is the constant in life.
Especially with technology. I mean, that's going to change your life quicker than anything. And you've got to stay up with it, but not be overwhelmed by it.
Okay.
And you almost have to put up borders as to, okay, this is what I want to use. This I don't see as practical for me, and go from there. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to happen throughout your entire life. And as long as you're staying updated with it, you should be okay. And for some, that might mean going to the public library and working with technology if you don't have the money for it. It's just, you got to be there.
All right. Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation and having you guys on with me. So one last thing before we wrap up today's episode. If you had to pick one person who's really influenced and inspired you in life, who would it be and why? I do this segment every episode. It's just meant to spread some positivity, gratitude. So do you have a person that comes to mind?
Mine is Don Murphy.
I figured you'd say that.
Beat that one.
Well, I would, to give credit where credit is due, I would absolutely say Laura Pullman is one of my influential people. And I'm not just saying that to give back. I am a better teacher and human because of her, because I hang out with her. I mean, you talk about advice, like surround yourself with good people,
Yes.
right? Huge. I would not be tromping through buildings on a Saturday morning, dusty, rolling out on a street in Clay Center, having, you know, all of those experiences without her. I mean, I'm incredibly thankful for our friendship. I would also say my grandmother was a huge influence in my life, and she just poured into people. She did not have, I think she had finished high school, and you never left her house empty-handed. Like, it could be a quart jar of soup, or it could just be that she had poured into you and made you believe that you could do anything. You could go out and whip the world because she just believed in you. And she was always standing somewhere just smiling at you like you were the best thing since sliced bread. And we need people like that in our lives who are just standing over there going, you are so awesome and you are rocking it right now. And she was that person for me.
I think I tell teenagers, people you idolize or you want to be like are not national figures. They're somebody close to you. It could be a parent, a grandparent, it could be a teacher, it can be a coach. Find what there is about them that you really are attracted to. That's what you go for.
And emulate that.
Yes, they are your role models. And the people who are the best role models are the ones who know you.
Yeah. Well, that was something. I just want to say thank you guys for everything that you do, not only for me, but for every student that's gone through Clay Center. It's just impacted so many. Normally, I ask if you want to share a social media handle, but maybe you want to share your book title.
Yeah.
Is it glaring?
No,
Find the
you're good.
Facade, Clay Center's 5th and Lincoln. And we are on the socials, Instagram and Facebook, Clay County Entrepreneurs.
Okay.
It's like putting together interpreter and entrepreneur. So
Got it. Behind the Facade. Perfect. Well, I would just like to thank everyone listening for their work, doing life-saving work in their communities. And if you enjoy this episode, please share it with a friend or someone who would benefit. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Drug Prevention Power Hour. Thank you for listening, and thank you guys for being a part of it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Drug Prevention Power Hour podcast. If you love the show, make sure to leave a review and share what you've learned. And if you need help reducing substance use among youth by educating and engaging students in prevention, visit vive18.com for more information, tools, and resources.